I want to talk about something I hear all of the time, sometimes out loud and sometimes quietly sitting underneath people's hesitation to come back to yoga. The question usually sounds like this: Is yoga still working, or did I just fall off? And then there's the bigger version of it, the one people are sometimes afraid to say because it feels a little controversial. Is modern yoga failing modern bodies, or are we just afraid to adapt it? Hello, my name is Dominique Gauthier, and I am the owner of Body Mind Fitness. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, I want to start by naming something important. When people worry about yoga being watered down, about props, about weights, about modifications, goats, puppies, and beer, the concern usually comes from a place of care, not malice. It comes from loving a practice and wanting to protect it, and I completely respect that. But here's the part that often gets missed. Yoga has always evolved. Adaptation isn't new. It's how yoga survived in the first place. What is new is how we live. Most modern yoga asana, the postures we recognize today, is relatively young in the scope of yoga's history. And in that same window of time, daily life has changed completely. We sit more, we commute, we stare at screens, we're constantly multitasking, and we live with chronic stress, low-grade fatigue, and very little actual recovery. So when someone tells me yoga doesn't feel like it translates to real life anymore, I don't hear resistance. I hear honesty. For me, this question became very real after becoming a mom. There was a point where fitting 3 separate types of movement practices into my life felt doable. Strength training, yoga, and some sort of cardio. I was working out 10 hours a week. But this stopped being realistic. Not emotionally, but logistically. I was really tired. I was stretched thin, and I remember thinking, if the only movement that counts is doing everything perfectly, then I guess this season just isn't for me. And that didn't sit right. So I started experimenting, not as a trend and not to be edgy, but because I needed something that worked. I started combining my yoga practice with my strength training. I added resistance bands and weights to my yoga, and it was real messy at first. It was imperfect and a little awkward, and definitely not Instagram ready. One day, before my more traditional yoga class was about to start, I mentioned my own personal practice. I casually described adding resistance bands and weights into the yoga poses that they were already familiar with. And my students were intrigued. They wanted to try it, and then they never wanted to go back, which is especially interesting considering I originally opened Body Mind Fitness, formerly Body Mind Yoga, as a traditional yoga space. And I'll be honest, there was a moment where I genuinely questioned whether I could even call my classes yoga anymore. I worried about that more than I'd like to admit. And what resolved that internal struggle was realizing this: the bones are still yoga. The awareness, the breath, the choice, the attention, the pause to notice what's happening instead of pushing through it. Those things matter more than aesthetics. They always have. There's room for all yoga. And I've seen what happens when people are given permission to move in ways that actually support them. In my yoga for mobility and strength classes, I watched something shift over time. People used to hover around, maybe even fight a little bit over the lightest weights like they were fragile glass, not because they were weak, but because they were scared of being wrong. Now, those same people confidently choose heavier weights, not aggressively and not performatively, but calmly. They're not scared of the numbers anymore. And when someone hesitates, I'll say it out loud because it's usually true. Your purse is heavier than a 5-pound weight. The movement matters. It's not really about strength, it's about trust, trusting yourself. This idea of permission comes up constantly in yoga teacher training, too. Conversations around props, modifications, supporting real bodies instead of idealized ones. If a student modifies, that's not failure, that's intelligence. Sometimes a prop or a modification actually helps people feel a pose in a way that was never available to them before. I'll give you an example from my own practice. Personally, I'm someone who can touch my toes, no problem. And I still love using a couple of blocks under my hands to bring the floor closer to me. With that extra support, I can really let go. I feel deeper stretches. I feel more confident releasing into the pose without worrying about toppling over. It gives me a firmer connection with the floor. Now, fitness culture loves to talk about better than yesterday. I actually used to have a pair of shoes that said that on the inside. And for the most part, I believe that. But what happens on days when you don't have much to give? You slept like crap, you were running late, you skipped breakfast, and not only that, you didn't even get your first cup of that sweet elixir of life, also known as coffee. If the choice is gentle movement or no movement at all, always choose gentle movement. And yes, you can get a workout online. You can follow along with YouTube. You can use AI. Those are tools, and they're not bad ones. But here's what technology can't replace. It can't see you. It can't notice when your breath changes. It can't adapt in real time. And it can't replicate someone waiting for you with a smile on their face. There is nothing like someone waiting for you. Being expected somewhere changes how we show up even when we don't want to. Accountability can be kind. I mean, imagine leaving your best friend waiting for you at your favorite all-you-can-eat sushi place, cocktail in hand, no phone call, no text message. You just don't show up. It's the same thing. You wouldn't do that. I hope you wouldn't do that. I hope for your best friend you wouldn't do that. So if you've drifted away from yoga, not because you hated it, but because it stopped fitting your body or your life, I want you to hear this clearly. Yoga hasn't failed you. Rigid interpretations sometimes do. Adaptation isn't disrespect, it's survival. Modern bodies live modern lives, and movement should reflect that. You don't need flexibility to start again, because flexibility comes from starting. You don't need to be ready, you just need curiosity. And if this resonates, take a quiet look at how this philosophy shows up in my classes. You don't have to decide anything today. And if you've been curious but hesitant, this is actually a really good time to try a class. We're about to head into another foundational phase. Simple movements, clear guidance, and it's only $10 if you've never been to the studio before, and you don't have to live in London, Ontario. You can attend from anywhere in the world because the classes here are hybrid. Belonging isn't built by being perfect. It's built by beginning. Thank you so much for being here today and supporting my channel. It truly means the world to me. And if you love this video, do your part, leave a heart, and don't forget to subscribe so you're notified when the next video drops. I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Bye for now.